Impa. She typically serves as a nursemaid and or bodyguard to Princess Zelda, and often offers guidance to Link. She's the signature sheikah. We have seen her in countless Zelda games, but the question is, will we see her again in Breath of the Wild? What will she do in the game? Will Impa return in this adventure to guide Link? Well, let's find out. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the new upcoming Zelda game filled with adventure, nature, action, and sheikah symbols. Yes, we see a lot of sheikah related things in the game, for example the shrines and the sheikah slate. But I'm wondering, will we see Impa in Breath of the Wild? Or is that not even possible? We don't know in which timeline the new Zelda game takes place. So we're going to take a look at all the timelines and see in which ones it's possible, and in which ones it isn't. Let's start at the beginning of the timeline, right after Skyward Sword. In Skyward Sword, Impa is a member of the Sheikah tribe who honors the request of the goddess Hylia to protect Zelda while she is at the Earth Temple, traveling into the future where the events of Skyward Sword begin. Eventually, as her younger self safeguards the Master Sword after Demise's defeat, Link, Zelda and Groose learn that the old lady's true identity is Impa before she vanishes as she fulfilled her mission and can finally rest in peace. So this means that Impa is no more after Skyward Sword, and all these years she stayed in the same place and looked over the Master Sword. This means that the chances of Impa returning in this part of the timeline are slim. We don't even see her in the games after Skyward Sword. But we also don't really know what she did in the time between old and young Impa. Maybe she used the time gate to go to the Breath of the Wild timeline to help out Link. This could also explain why the Master Sword looks so damaged, since Impa was supposed to guard it. But maybe she had to abandon the sword in order to help Link. But we can't really be sure about this since we don't know what happened during this time. And in my opinion, this doesn't really work, because the time gate can only travel to one point in time and back. This is the era just after Hylia's fight with Demise. And time travel stuff in general is a complete mess. Anything is possible. Now let's move on to the next timeline, the Adult Era. In this timeline, the world was flooded by the gods to stop Ganondorf from destroying it. The people now live on islands and the world has become one huge ocean. Now the last time we saw Impa was in Ocarina of Time, where she helped Link on his adventure and also turned out to be the Sage of Shadow. Now as far as I could find, Impa is nowhere to be seen in this entire timeline. There's only one place where we can see her as a work of art. In the Wind Waker, one of the stained glass windows in Hyrule Castle Town's basement depicts Impa from Ocarina of Time, as well as the sheikah emblem. But we gotta ask ourselves one thing. Did Impa die during the flood, or is there a descendant of her somewhere in the world? Well, we don't really know. So if Breath of the Wild takes place in this timeline, there's a big chance that we won't see Impa. Now on to the next one, the Child Era. In this timeline, Link has been sent back after the events of Ocarina of Time, and he leaves Hyrule for a while to search for Navi. Now yet again, no Impa. Not in Majora's Mask, not in Twilight Princess, and also not in Four Swords Adventures. But we do see another interesting character with a similar name in Twilight Princess. Impa, an elderly woman. She's the only remaining inhabitant of the hidden village, and became friends with Ilia after she helped her get to Hyrule Castle Town. Later on, she aids Link in his quest to save Hyrule from Zend. Now it's almost 100% certain that this woman is also a sheikah, but as far as we know, she has nothing to do with Impa. But given her red eyes, it's also possible that Impa herself is a descendant, or Impa herself. And there's a big chance that this is true, since Impa is the only sheikah seen after Ocarina of Time. So could we see the incarnation of Impa in the new Zelda game? Will Impa guide Link instead of Impa? Or is Impa actually Impa? Well, it's possible since Impa is around during that time period, and she also has knowledge of ancient magic and technology, so she could help Link in his adventures through the shrines. But what about the last timeline? The Downfall Era. Now in this timeline, Link is defeated by Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time and he takes control over Hyrule. We see Impa in 2 games in this timeline. The places where we see her are A Link Between Worlds and Oracle of Ages and Seasons. In A Link Between Worlds, she is Princess Zelda's attendant and one of the 7 sages. At the end of the game, we can see her in Hyrule Castle, so she survived for sure. and this means that she could return in Breath of the Wild. Now there's also an option that Breath of the Wild takes place in a new timeline split. This would leave the door wide open to anything, since there are multiple places in the timeline where this could happen. And this timeline is different from the other ones, so Impa could have survived everything or even came back. But if she would return, what would this mean? The old man is already guiding Link. Well, we don't really know what's going to happen outside of the Great Plateau, and besides that, we don't even know a lot about the story. The only thing that stands out is that we can see a lot of sheikah related items and buildings. And this is where Impa jumps in. She could explain what happened to Link and Hyrule itself. Maybe she'll return in the villages that weren't in the demo. She was the one who opened Kakariko Village to the public after all, and she's also the caretaker of the village. So we will have to wait and see what happens. How great that you watched the entire video! I hope you enjoyed it, I worked really hard on it. And if you want to watch more of my videos, click the annotations on the screen right now or in the upper right corner, and why not subscribe, then you won't miss a thing!